Okay, so yes, good morning, everyone. Dear participants, a very good morning to you all in this morning session of day 5 of the short-term course on data analytics and predictive technology-driven IoT-based smart grid infrastructure. In the morning session, we are going to have one hands-on training on design and implementation of digital controller using digital signal processor. And I am really proud to introduce my research team. Basically, two of my research scholars, Mr. Soumya Ranjan Meher and Mr. Viren Prasad Maurya, they will be conducting this session. It's really, as I said, a proud moment for any teacher if a student learns to a level that he can teach to others. So I also have the same feeling at this moment. Soumya is a senior PhD student. He is working on the reconfigurable power supplies for electric vehicle applications, and he is actually using and he has been implementing this DSP for the development of the digital controller for his thesis work. Virendra is also working on the different type of power converter, reconfigurable power converter that would be applied on the electric vehicle in the electric vehicle applications, and he has also learned this digital signal processing implementation and how basically we can generate the pulses from these digital domain devices. So with this, I request now Soumya and Viren to take over the session, and hopefully, because this is a hands-on training, I always believe and feel that for any power electronics student, in order to develop a prototype, such kind of sessions used to be very helpful because you learn the practical aspects of the things. So theoretical aspect is one thing where we learn so many fundamentals, so many background theory related to the concept. But when you go and start learning about the implementation, that needs a different kind of approach and attitude. So in that way, this hands-on training session is going to be very, very helpful. Uh, uh, and this will be helpful to everyone who is willing to develop some sort of prototype uh, uh, towards their work, right? So with this, now I will hand over the session to Soumya and Viren. Over to you, both of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor Singh, sir, for providing us the opportunity to conduct this session on DSP. Good morning, everyone, and namaste. Everyone, we are going to present a hands-on training on design and implementation of digital controller using digital signal processor. We will try to conduct all those points by which it will create a better platform for your understanding. Let us have a look at the outline of the presentation. First of all, a small introduction of the DSP. It will delivered along with its architecture. Then we will discuss its peripheral frame, digital input-output unit, pin assignment, and watchdog timer. After this, we will learn how to generate a pulse using EPWM, and then a short demo on generation of signal which will be shown alive. And then it generated pulse we apply to the open loop boost converter. The dock, here we can see the dock station and control card. The TMS 32F28335 is a 32-bit fixed point microcontroller from the Texas Instrument. This microcontroller is specialized in high performance control applications such as robotics, industrial automation, mass storage device, lighting, optical networking, power supplies, and other control applications, needing a single processor to solve a high performance application. The dock station provides power to the control card and has a breadboard area for prototyping. For extension of the new version, we can change only the control card and apply to dock station. Here we can see all the peripheral units of the F28335 are memory mapped into data memory space of its hardware architecture machine. This means that we can control the peripheral units by accessing dedicated data memory address into the data bus. We can better understand by taking a simple analogy. If we know the coordinate of the beautiful places of the city, then we can reach that place faster and efficiently. Similarly, we need to know about the dedicated address of the peripheral so we can reach any peripheral in efficiently. So control will be faster. Here, the peripheral units are grouped into four peripheral frames are peripheral frame 0, peripheral frame 1, peripheral frame 2, and peripheral frame 3. Here we can explain the digital input output unit. All digital input output are grouped together into ports called GPIO A, GPIO B, and GPIO C. The F2833X features a total 88 input-output pins called GPIO 0 to GPIO 87. When a digital input-output function is selected, the register group GPIO X dir means GPIO the direction of the input-output. The following summarizes the input-output control register. Here you can see the internal bus and outer port are connected with the GPIO. Here we will take only the GPIO Mux 1 because only it dedicated output pins give the desired EPWM signals. In the table, we can see a relation in EPWM with the GPIO pins. 6 sets of EPWM signal can be generated. Their names like EPWM XA and EPWM XB. So total 12 EPWM signal will be generated and those output can be seen in those assigned pin of GPIO. All these pins are on USB dock station. We can see all these are there. We will explain this later in detail. Now, here a watchdog timer is a what is watchdog timer? A watchdog timer is a free running counter unit that trigger a reset if it is not clear periodically by a specific instruction sequence. The watchdog timer is always alive when the DSP is powered up. When we do not take care of the watchdog timer periodically, it will trigger a reset. Here we can take one more analogy to explain what is watchdog timer using a transportation system example. If bus stops periodically in a fixed time interval, then it creates an unnecessary delay in your journey and create an obstruction in the transportation system. So we need to stop its dysfunctionality by deciding the rule to stop only on fixed bus station. In the same way, watchdog discontinues our operation by stopping the program, so we need to disable it. Interrupt system. F2833X core interrupt line. The core interrupt system of F2833X consists of 16 interrupts line. Interrupts are of mainly two types. Non-maskable interrupt. This type of interrupt executed immediately without any delay. And other one is maskable interrupt, which is executed by deciding what is the priority of the interrupt. We can take another analogy to explain the interrupt. Think like you are studying for your exam and suddenly your girlfriends call you. Now you have to decide the priority between pick up the call or preparation for the exam. Mainly, you pick up that call immediately. It is like a non-maskable interrupt, or if you reply her when you have free time, it is like a maskable interrupt. We have 12 maskable interrupt and each maskable interrupt 8 bits, so we have 96 interrupts, so that each cell of interrupt assigned table presents to a particular event. If we need to EPWM 2A, consider you have a lock. I take one more another analogy. Consider you have a lock, but you need to right key to unlock it. Similarly, to access an interrupt, you assign the right pin to interrupt particular EPWM signal. Now, I would like to invite my colleague Mr. Soumya Ranjan Meher to continue this hands-on session.
Okay, thank you, Viren, for making all the participants understand about the basic hardware structure of the digital controller DSP. So now I'd like to start here. Yeah. So we'll start with the PWM. PWM, that is pulse width modulation. And what is the importance of PWM? Right. So PWM pulses are needed at the input of any gate terminal of the MOSFET. Means any power electron converter consists of switches, and all the switches need that PWM pulses at the gate input to operate. So so whenever we need to
Soumya sir, slides is not visible.
Slides not visible. Okay. 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 Let's. One. Right now it is visible, I think.
Screen is visible now. Yeah, slides is visible.
Now slide is visible.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So here is a basic boost converter where there is one MOSFET switch which needs to be controlled using a DSP board. So here we are, here we have to write a code to generate a PWM pulse, and we have to dump that code into this DSP board, and we have to take the output from these pins that you can see here, and these pins needs to be connected from the gate to source terminal of the boost converter. So at the last of this session, we will write the code, we will generate PWM pulses, and we will provide these PWM pulses to a boost converter in practical, that is in real time, and we will show you the output. Now coming to the next slide. Okay, so what is pulse width modulation? The PWM signal is obtained by comparing a modulating signal with a carrier signal, and the carrier signal is always a high frequency signal, which is need to be compared with respect to any modulating signal. As we know, as we have to operate the boost converter in open loop mode, that is at fixed duty ratio. We know the duty ratio, so we know the amount of time for which we need to turn on the switch and for which time we need to turn off the switch. So for this particular case, we can compare a constant line, that is a constant DC value, with the high frequency carrier signal. Sorry. So that what will happen? Means whenever this modulating signal will be compared with the carrier signal, a PWM pulse will be generated. Like now the carrier signal can be generated in two types, that is sawtooth or triangular. Or in detail, if we will go, the sawtooth can again be divided into two modes, that is up mode sawtooth or down mode sawtooth. So now, so in conclusion, we can generate three modes of carrier signal, that is up mode carrier signal, down mode, and up down mode, which is additionally called as triangular mode. Now coming, now here you can see, according to the logic that we are going to write inside the main program of the code, accordingly the PWM will be generated. So here the PWM is generated according to the logic. Like the logic is, whenever the value of carrier signal will be more than the modulating signal, the output of the pulse or the output at the output port will be 1. And whenever the value of the carrier signal is less than the modulating signal, the value at the output will be 0. Similarly, during the down mode, we have taken the logic like the reverse manner. Like whenever the value of carrier signal will be less than the modulating one, the output will be 1, otherwise the output will be 0. In case of up and downward, we have written the code like here. Whenever the value of carrier signal will be more than the modulating signal, the output will be 1, otherwise the output will be 0. Now let's see the difference between continuous domain and discrete domain. As we know, the digital signal processor or DSP works on the digital domain. We have to convert all signals into discrete domain or digital domain. So let's see first how to create a carrier signal in the discrete domain. As we know, this is the sawtooth signal in off mode and in continuous domain. As we have to discretize this one, so in the discrete domain, it will be looking like a staircase signal. Like it is infinite number of staircase, or the number of staircases we are going to define here, it will be defined in this manner, right? So let's say we have zoomed view of this one. We have a zoomed view of this one here. So this is a staircase model. Like staircase signal starting from 0 for some time, it is again going up, it is 1 for some time, it is again going up, it is 2 for some time, and like this. So here what is going on? There is a register value. There is a register inside the DSP named TVPRD. That is time-based period. So we have to store a value inside the TVPRD according to the frequency needed at the output of the PWM. So what the counter will do now? The counter will start counting from 0, and it will go on counting up to the value of TVPRD, and again it will directly come back to 0 as it is in up mode, right? So what is the function of counter now? The function will store the instantaneous value of the carrier signal. So the counter will store 0 for this much time, will store 1 for this much time, will store 2 for this much time, and so on. So the TVPRD, so the time period of this can be defined as T of the TVPRD. Now coming to the next slide. What is EPWM? Actually, that is a pulse width modulation. We can generate using a block that is present inside the DSP board, and that is called EPWM or enhanced pulse width modulation. So basically, there are 6 EPWM units present inside a TMS 320F28335, where each unit has the capacity to generate two separate PWM pulses, but both with the same frequency. Duty ratio may be changed, but the frequency must be changed within the same unit. Like this, 6 different units are present, where we can generate total 12 number of pulses with 6 kind of frequencies. And this is possible only when each PWM unit is controlled by its own logic block. Now, coming to the next point, means whenever we are operating any converter in closed loop mode, what we need to do? First, we need to sense the output parameter. And as we know, in the real world, all the output parameters are in continuous mode. We need to convert this continuous mode signal or the analog mode signal to the digital one. For that, we need to start the analog to digital conversion within the DSP. So any common microcontroller requests the interrupt service routine to start the analog to digital conversion. But this particular DSP can start analog to digital conversion directly from an internal hardware event without any software interaction. So there is no need of any software interaction whenever we are converting any analog signal to a digital one. It can start by itself from an internal hardware event. Now coming to the next slide. This is the overall architecture block diagram of EPWM. Now these are the units, and the basic input to the EPWM block is system clock out. Means the basic system clock out frequency that is generated by a clock present inside the DSP board, and it is fixed at 150 megahertz. So 150 megahertz is given to entire architecture of EPWM. Now it is first given to the clock prescaler. The clock prescaler, what it will do? The function of clock prescaler is it will reduce the frequency of the system clock frequency to the required level, and again this will give to the 16-bit time-based counter. This counter will store the instantaneous value of the carrier signal. Now again, now this is a period register, that is TVPRD. It will store the maximum value of the carrier signal, and these 3 units will now go to the compare logic, and this compare logic will again receive the signal from CMPA and CMPB register. What are CMPA and CMPB register? as I have already mentioned, that there are two registers, that there are two PWM pulses can generate in each unit. So there are two registers to store that modulating signal or that value of the modulating signal, which is going to be compared with the carrier signal. Now, upon comparison, what Exxon qualifier will do, like Exxon qualifier will decide what are the actions to be taken upon comparison. And the deadband, PWM chopper, and trip zone will be discussed later, whichever which is required to generate the PWM signal today. Now, coming to the silent features of this EPWM block. Though single-ended output signal can be generated, as we have discussed, means each unit has the capacity to generate two PWM signals. So we generally what do is we generally generate two EPWM pulses at the same time. That is EPWM XA. X can be replaced with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As we have discussed, there are 6 independent units. It can be EPWM 1A, EPWM 1B, EPWM 2A, 2B. Similarly, it can goes up to EPWM 6A and EPWM 6B. Now, to generate a physical output signal at any GPIO pin, that is general purpose input output pin, which is present on the docking station. So, to generate any physical output pin, few units need to be set up, and these units are time-based unit, compare logic unit, Exxon qualifier unit, deadband unit, chopper unit, and trip zone unit. These units are already shown in this architecture block diagram. So we need to set up all the units, right? So now, not all the blocks, some important blocks that are going to be useful for today's programming will be discussed in detail. So coming to the first unit, time-based unit. So here the clock prescaler, and the time-based counter and the period register constitute this time-based unit, right? So, so coming to the time-based unit, again there are multiple registers inside this time-based unit which are need to be defined. Registers need to be defined means you have to set the values inside the register, right? So the first one is time-based counter register, that is TBCTR. Second one is time-based period register, that is TBPRD. Third one is time-based phase register, that is TBPSS. Fourth one is time-based status register, that is TBSPS. Time-based control register is TBCTL. Now, coming to the first one, TBCTR, that is time-based counter register. As I have already mentioned, the time-based counter register will store the instantaneous value of the carrier signal. Let's see, here is the carrier signal which is in up-down mode. So, what is the function of TBCTR? TBCTR register will store the value of 0 for this much time period. It will store 1 for this much time period. It will store 2 for this much time period, and it will goes on. Now, coming to the function of TBPRD. TBPRD register is also a 16-bit register where we have to store the maximum value of the carrier signal. So, so let's take an example of TBPRD equal to 4, and it is in up-down mode. So this will start like the counter will start counting from 0. It will go up to 4, and again it will go to again it will come to 0 gradually. So this is up-down mode. If the situation is like it is in up mode, it will start from 0. It will goes up to 4, and after 4 it will suddenly come to 0, and again it will start from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 like this. Now coming to the next slide, EPWM time-based unit. Sorry, EPWM time-based unit. Another register is TBPSS, that is time-based phase register. What is the importance of time-based phase register? First one thing, let me clear. We are not going to use TBPSS register for today's programming, as we are going to control a single switch. TBPSS will be used only when we need to control multiple switch with a phase difference between them. This is most useful while controlling a three-phase system. In three-phase system, what is happening? We need 3 different MOSFETs, or 3 different switch, or 3 different set of switches, which is required to turn on at an interval of 120 degrees. As a symmetrical three-phase system is 120 degree phase shifted from each other. Right. Now let's see what is 120 degree phase shift means. 120 degree phase shift means we have taken a circle which is 360 degree, and 120 degree is 1/3 of the circle. So we have set the TBPRD value here 6000. Means let's for the example in up mode. In up mode what will happen? It will the counter will start counting from 0. It will go up to 6000, and it will again come to 0. Means it is the value of 6000, right? It is 6000 here. So if we will divide the entire 6000 time period, that is this time period upon 3, it will be 2000 steps. Means here to here, these are actually 6000 steps, right? Like from here to here, it are 8 steps. So here to here, it will be 6000 steps in up mode. So for this, we need to divide 6000 by 3. That will be 2000. So the first PWM will usually start from 0 to 6000. The second PWM will start after 2000 steps. After 2000 steps of the first one starts, and it will continue for 6000 steps, as we need 3 sets of PWM signals with same frequency. So the time period needs to be same. So the count, so the steps count need to be same. So the steps difference will be 6000 for all 3 signals. So the second one will start from 2000 and it will go to 8000. Similarly, the third PWM will start after 2000 of the second one, or after 4000 of the second one. Like, so it will start from 4000 and it will goes up to 10,000. As we have to count the step period as 6000 steps we have to count. Now, coming to the next one, that is TBCTL, time-based control register. This one is the most important register to step down the system clock frequency to a required level. Now, TBCTL is also a 16-bit register, which we have divided into 2 registers, that is upper register and lower register. This upper register constitutes the bit number 7 to bit number 15, and the lower register constitutes from bit number 0 to bit number 6. Now, this upper register has different segments again. That is, the first segment is a 3-bit register, that is HSP CLKD. What does this mean? High speed clock division. So, as it is a 3-bit register, we can have maximum possibility of 8 combinations. That is starting from 000 to 111. That is 2 to the power 3. This is 8 number of possibilities there. If I'm defining this value of register within the program of the as let's say it's 5, so it will be 100. So the system clock frequency, that is 150 megahertz, will be divided by 8. Right now, coming to CLKD with clock division. This is also a 3-bit register which we can define, and we can have maximum number of 8 possibilities over here. So let me define 101 for this. So if I am defining CLKD with 5, that is 101, it will be further divided by 32. Means now the output frequency, that is TBCLK, that is each time-based clock frequency, will be same as the system clock frequency divided by this 8 here and 32 here. So the formula for the TBCLK frequency will be, that is time-based clock frequency now, will be the system clock out frequency divided upon the multiplication of high-speed clock division into clock division. Right now, coming to the lower register, the important one in the lower register is CTR mode. So CTR mode is counter mode. So it will define in which mode the carrier will count, or the carrier will be constituted. Means, let's say we have defined 3 modes, right? That is count off mode, count down mode, and count up down mode. According to your requirement, you have to define this CTR mode inside the program. Like, if you are defining CTR mode as 1, it will be count down mode. So a carrier like this will be generated. If I am defining CTR mode as 10 or CTR mode as 2, it will define a triangular or up down mode. If I am defining CTR mode as 0, it will start counting in up direction and will create a carrier signal like this. Right now, all these segments will be required to setting up if you are using this advanced feature. So for this for today's program, we will only define counter mode today. Now, coming to the timer operating mode, as we have already discussed, the timer operating mode will be in 3 types. That is count up mode, count down mode, and count up down mode. So in count up mode, what is happening here? The counter will start counting from 0. It will goes up to the value of TBPRD stored inside the register. So here I have stored a value of 4 inside the TBPRD register. So it will start counting from 0 and it will goes up to 4 and it will suddenly come to 0. Again, it will start counting from 0 and it will go like this. Now let's come to the frequency of the signal. So as we know, the frequency of the carrier signal will be same as the frequency of the output PWM signal. So it is important to find out the frequency of the carrier signal. So let's find out the frequency of this carrier signal. So to find out, we first need to define the time period of this signal. So time period of this signal is as it is a step signal, we have defined each step length as TBCLK, that is time-based clock, right? This is the time period of one time-based clock. So how much time-based clock is present inside inside one cycle of the TBPRD or one cycle of the carrier signal? Let's count it. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So can I write down time period of the PWM signal is equal to 5 times of the time period of the time-based clock, as this is the value of time-based clock. So 5 times of the time-based clock. Now can I write down 5 as 4 plus 1? As I stored the value of TBPRD as 4, we have to define 4 plus 1 into time-based the time period of 1 TBCLK. Now I can write down the final formula as time period of the PWM pulses at the output is equal to TBPRD value plus 1 into the time period of the time-based clock register. Similarly, for the clock down mode, let's count the total time period. It is 1 here, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So T of PWM will be 5 times of time of this TBCLK. So the same formula will be applicable for up mode and down mode. Now coming to the up down mode. In up down mode, you have to define the counter mode as 2, and you have to store a value of TBPRD here. That let's for example, we have stored the value of TBPRD as 4. So what the counter will do? The counter will start counting from 0. It will goes in a stepped manner to 4, and again it will come back to 0 in a stepped manner. Now find out the time period of this signal. So what is the time period of this signal? Time period of any signal is defined as the total time period after which the signal repeats after itself. So as we have started from 0, we have to count up to again the signal is going to start from 0. So this is the time period of this signal. Now let's count how much TBCLK is present inside one cycle. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So time period of one PWM signal is 8 times of the time period of TBCLK. That I can write down 2 into 4. That is 2 into TBPRD value into the time-based clock register or the time period of the TBCLK value. Now, for triangular wave, this is the formula, that is T of PWM equal to 2 into TB period into T of TBCLK. Now, I have to replace this T of TBCLK because I have to derive the formula here. F of TBCLK is this one. So T of TBCLK will be reverse of this one. That is HSP and CLKD will go to the numerator, and system clock out frequency will come to the denominator part. So I have replaced it here with 2 into TBPRD multiplied by HSP into CLKD upon system clock out frequency. So the frequency of the PWM signal can be taken out by inversing the time period. So half into this is the formula for frequency of the PWM signal needed. Actually, what happens practically, we know the frequency at which we need to switch, at which we need to operate the switch. So we have the FPWM in our hand. We have the system clock out frequency fixed at 150 megahertz. We have to decide HSP, CLK and CLK as per our requirement. So the foremost important thing is we need to define TB period, the TB PRD, that is time-based period within the program. So we need to find out the value of TBPRD. So TBPRD value can be found using this formula. TBPRD up into this one. This formula is only applicable for up-down mode, right? As this is 2 is multiplied here. This is for up-down mode. We have derived. Similarly, for up mode and for down mode, it can be derived individually. So coming to the next unit, that is compare unit. Compare unit constitutes of two modulating signal. Means two register that will stores the value of instantaneous value of the modulating signal, that is CMPA and CMPB. In this case, we have taken a constant value of CMPA and CMPB that will be compared with the carrier signal. So the TBPRD is also a part of compare unit because we need to count 0 to TBPRD. So this will generate the carrier signal. These are the modulating signal, and this will be compared inside the compare logic. Now, right? Now, coming to the next slide. Next will be Xn qualifier unit. For Xn qualifier unit, what is the function of Xn qualifier unit? After comparison, what are the Xns to be taken upon the comparison, it will be defined here. So to define the Xn qualifier unit, again there are some registers inside this unit which we need to define. So the Exxon qualifier unit constituting it is also a 16-bit register, out of which there are these registers are present inside that. So the first one is a 2-bit register. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 registers. Each register is a 2-bit register where we need to define the 2 bits. So as there are 2 bits, we can have maximum of 4 combinations, that is 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, and 1, 1. If I am defining 0, 0 inside any register, it will do nothing or no actions will be taken. If I am defining any register as 0, 1, so the output will be clear. That is, output will be 0 for that time. If I am defining any register as 1, 0, that is 2, the output will be high. And if I am defining 1, 1, it will be toggle between low and high to low with each clock pulse received. Now coming to each segment of this register, that is ZRO register. The ZRO means whatever I have, I will define inside this register, actions will be taken only when the counter only when the counter register will be 0. Means the instantaneous value of the carrier signal will be 0. Then the action will be taken, and the action taken means what will the action taken? It will be defined like this. If I have taken ZRO equal to 0, 1, then the action, then the output will be clear only when the value of your carrier signal is 0. That is, instantaneous value of carrier signal is 0. Similarly, PRD will be, action will be taken whenever the counting value will be same as the PRD value or TB PRD value. So CAU and CAD. CAU and CAD, the actions will be taken only when the counter value will be same as the value stored in CMPA register. But what is the difference between U and D? So CAU will act upon only when it is in off mode. Means CAU will act upon only when in off mode. So this is in off mode, and let's say this is the value stored in CMPA register. So CAU will act upon at this point only when in off mode. So if I will define CAD for this signal, it will not work. For CAD to work, it will act like, if this is the carrier signal, this is the modulating signal. CAD means it is the value of it is the value stored in CMPA. So the actions will be taken when it will be same as A and it is in down mode. So if I am defining CAD as 1, 0, that it is set high, so whatever the output pulse before this, at this point it will be 1. Clear? Similarly, CBU and CBD are also defined. Now coming to the actual example that we are going to deal with is EPWM compare event, that is EPWM for up count. For up count, what I have to define first? I have to define counter mode, that is CTR mode as 0, right? After defining CTR mode as 0, now I have to define what are the actions to be taken. So I have written here EPWM2 register. What is EPWM2 register? There are 6 EPWM units, right? Out of which I am going to define the EPWM2 units. So there are registers inside EPWM2 units. That's why I have written here EPWM2 registers, means REGS register dot AQCTL A. Means AQCTL is the register that we have already discussed, Exxon qualifier register, and A, where I am going to define the A bit, means EPWM2A. Whatever I will write here, it will affect the output at EPWM2A, right? Now, dot bit means AQCTL is a 16-bit register for which I have to define each and individual bit. So I am writing here dot bit dot ZRO. Means as I have taken here, the ZRO is this register, right? It's a 2-bit register. So I will define ZRO as AQSet. Instead of AQSet, I can write down directly 2 here. But for easy convenience, I have written AQSet. The program is already defined AQSet. Means whenever I will write AQSet here, it will consider as 2, right? Now the next line is EPWM2 register same dot AQCTL A same. So it will affect the EPWM2A output. Now CAU will be clear, means whenever the carrier signal value will be same as the value stored in A while in off mode, then the output will be cleared, means 0. Instead of AQ clear, I can write 0, 1 here, right? I can write 1. Now, so let's see here. This is the carrier signal, right? And here constant A, means this is the value stored inside the register EMP A. Now it is going to be compared. So first line is whenever the value of the carrier signal will be 0, it will be set. Whenever the value of carrier signal is 0 here, the PWM will be set. It is 1. Whatever the earlier value, it will be 1 now, right? Here it is 0. So whatever the previous value will be 1 now. Clear? Now coming to the next line, that is CAU equal to clear. Means whenever the CMPA value will be same as A in off mode, the output will be clear. Means at this point it is going to be clear. Whatever the previous value, it will be clear here. At this point also, at this point, right? At this point also, CMPA, whenever the carrier signal will be same as A value, it will be clear over here, right? Similarly, EPWM I have defined that at 0 it will be set, and at B means whenever the value of the carrier signal will be same as B, or the value stored in the CMPB register in off mode, it will be clear. Similarly, here you can see 0, at 0 it will be set high, and at B point it will be clear, right? Here it is going to be clear. Similarly, here it is clear, right? Coming to down mode. Down mode means I have to define CTR mode as what? 1. After defining CTR mode as 1, I have to define the external qualifier register. I have defined here ZRO as set, means whenever it will be 0, the value will be set here, means the value will be 1 here. Now I have written CAD, means whenever the value of the carrier signal will be same as the value stored in the CMPA register during down mode. During down mode, it will be clear. So the value at this point is same as CMPA, and this is in down mode. So here it will be clear, right? Now coming to up down mode. Here you can clearly differentiate the difference between CAU and CAD. So here I am comparing. Let's say the carrier signal is same as the value of that is stored in CMPA register 2 times. So I have to define these 2 points. So this point is present while in off mode or while having a positive slope, right? So this point can be defined as CAU, when this point can be defined as CAD, because it is present during the negative slope, or it is present during the down mode. Now I have defined here that EPWM2 register dot external qualifier unit dot bit dot CAU. Whenever in off mode, it will be set, and whenever in down mode, that is CAD, it will be clear. So at this point, means at CAU point, it will be set, and at CAD point, it will be clear, right? For B registers also, I have taken CBU as set and CBD as clear. Means CBU means off, while the value will be B. The value will be same as the value stored in CMPB register, right? So at this point, it is going to be set, that is 1, and whenever in down mode, CBD equal to clear. So whenever in down mode, it is here in down mode, so it will be clear. Similarly, here it is in down mode, it will be clear here, right? Okay. So next, so the next module is deadband module. Deadband module will only be used only when there are 2 switches in series across a source. Means whenever there is a chances of short circuiting the source, to avoid the short circuit or the shoot through condition, we have to apply a deadband, so that let's say this is switch 1 and let's say this is switch 2. So there will be no time at any moment both the switch S1 and S2 will be turned on, so that the source will be short circuited. We have to avoid this condition. So there is some rest period is provided between 2 pulses, so that S2 will be turned on after completely switching off the switch S1. That is the application of deadband. However, today's example will be boost, and there is 1 switch, so we are not going to use the deadband module. If you are going to use the deadband module, you need to define this register according to your requirement. Now, coming to programming development environment. For programming, to write the program, we need to first install CCS, that is Code Composer Studio, of any latest version. I think we have provided the link to download, and I hope all the participants have downloaded this one. So now we will go through how to create a project in CCS. Now I will demonstrate how to create a program. So first, open CCS. It will be open. After opening CCS, Let me one minute. I will share one file with you guys, which will be where all the steps are defined to create a project. Yeah, I am sharing this file. You can download it from the chat box. How to insert the file here. Okay, I will share the file later. Let me share my screen here. So this is the file. Okay. So the first step is go to project and create new CCS project. I think everyone is open CCS 8 by now, and right, everyone is open. Now go to project and click on CCS project. If this option is not available to you, you can go to file and go to new. Here is also CCS project. If this CCS project is not visible to, the project option must be there. So go on project. You can click on C or C++. There is also a CCS project, and under the Code Composer Studio option, there is also an option to create a CCS project. So click anywhere or directly click on project CCS project. Click on next. After clicking next, this will be the pop-up window will be coming in front of you. So you need to define this target first. Here it is written that a pop-up screen will appear as follows. This is the pop-up screen that we have seen. Now define the target. Target is what? Whenever we are going to whatever the DSP board going to connect with your PC. Means I have today with me, that is DSP 28335 board. So I am going to define here 28335. Here 28335 is not present. Instead, sorry, 28333X is present. So 28333X can represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 anywhere, right? So I have to define 2833 Delphino here. Now again, options are automatically coming. It is showing to me that whether it is an experimental kit or whether it is TMS T20F28334 or 5. I have today with me that is experimental kit Delphino F28335. So I have to choose this one. Now connection. 1 minute. So here you can see this is the DSP board, right? Let's turn off first. Okay. Now the DSP is turned off, and what is written here? It like you have to select the connection as TI XDS 100 V1 USB debug port. So here I have to search for that one. That is TI. Here it is TI XDS 100 V1. I think this one is visible to everyone. Texas Instrument XTS 100 V1 USB debug probe. Select on this. Now I have to verify. Before verifying, is my camera visible? Before verifying, I have to switch on the DSP port. So now it is switched on. I think the green LEDs are shown, right? So after this, I will click on verify. So after verifying, you can see here the scan test has succeeded. Means this is successfully connected to my computer. So CCS. If I will verify this after switching off this one, if I will verify, the test should fail now, right? So here it is written that there is an error, right? It is error here. Right? This utility was selected to adopt. So here these are few suggestions or the explanation why it is failed, right? It is failed here. Here you can see the command: an error occurred while stop opening the controller. Means my PC is now unable to establish any connection with the DSP board, right? Now let me turn on this and verify this. It will succeed the test now. Now the detect directory integrity scan test has succeeded. Now it is able to establish a connection from my PC to the DSP board. Now I have to provide a project name. Let's say some course DSP, right? Is the default location. For the compiler version, you have to select the latest one. I have 1.2 and 1.3. So 1.3 is the latest one for me. So I am choosing 1.3. It is written over here also. Empty the compiler version, prefer the latest one. Now create empty project with main.c. Now I am creating this project, empty project with main.c, and click on finish. After clicking finish, this will, the STC DSP, that is Saturn Course DSP project, is shown in the left panel of the screen. Now, what I have to do, I have to follow the next instruction in this PDF. That is, right click on project name and go to properties. Right click on the project name, going to properties. Next option here it is written. Go to build option, C2000 compiler option, and go to include option. Here it is build option, C2000 option, have to go include option, right? Again, after that, add the directory to include search path. That is, click on green plus button and browse the C2000 library and select the header file, header include file. And the path is defined here at sorry. It is normally stored in C drive and TI folder, and the path is like this. So we will do one by one. Let me click on the green plus button, add here. I have to go to browse. Now I have to define. Now I have to go to C drive. After that, I have to go to TI folder, right? TI folder, then C2000 and C2000 where. Then C2000 here. It is a single folder, C2000 where. So it is opened up in front of you. Now I have to go to device support, right? I have to search the device support. Here it is. After device support, you have to select your device. That is, we have today F2833X with us. So F2833 here I have to search F2833. Here it is. Now I have to go for header and include. So here it is header. I have to go now include. Now I have to click OK. So OK. Now again the next step is again click on green button and browse the include folder inside the common folder. So again the same part, again the same process. Browse here, go to C here, right? So I have to go for TI C2000, then this, then the device support, then 2833X here. Then I have to go for what? Headers and right, header include is completed. I have to go for common include now. So here common and include. I have to OK. Yes, it is OK. Now the next step is add the control file from library if you are implementing the controller part. If you are implementing any PI controller or PID controller or any compensator, you need to add this DCL file, that is digital control library file. As you know, we are just going to run today with a fixed duty cycle. We don't need to add this file. Now apply and close. Apply and close. Here it is. We go here, right. Now coming to the next point, adding source file. Right click on the project name and go to add file. I'm right clicking on the project name, and here is the add file. Now what I have to browse, I have to go to TI C2000 same device support. I have to do the common and source. Common source device support. Here it is 2833X. Here the common folder. Here these are sources. There are many files inside this folder. So select all the files, or if you know what are the files that you that is required, there is a source file that you required. If you know it, so you can select particularly. Else you need to select all files inside this folder and click open. It will ask you to copy the files and link to files. So link to files will take less space, but if you are doing the copy files option, then you can move the entire project to a different drive at a later stage. So I'm copying the file for convenience. Here it is OK. So the files will be copied, and you can see all the files are showing now inside this project, whatever I have added. Now coming to the next step, adding the source file by right clicking on the project name and go to add file. If you are implementing the controller, I'm not implementing the controller, so I have to so I can skip this step. You can add also. It is an additional step, but it will be compulsory when you are going to implement PI or PID or any compensator. Now coming to add source file, global variable definition, and the path is given here, that is header source. So right click here, add file. What is the path? It's header and source, right? So header here is the source file, here is a single file here. So I have to click it, I have to copy this one. Now go to the next point. Sorry, source file to add files, that is header non-BIOS. It is present inside header CMD. So again, I have to right click here, go to add file. This is header CMD. There are two files. I have to select the non-BIOS one as written in the instruction sheet. So now I think it is completed. Yeah, adding source file, right click on the project name and go to add file. DCL source. If you are implementing any digital controller, then DCL source needs to be added. Then now delete the SW prioritized default ISR.c. These are the files need to be deleted because I have selected all the files, and these two files may create any problem during the execution of the program. So I am going to delete these two files. Okay. Now the next now the last step is modify the main.c as per our requirement. Right. Now I have to modify the main.c. So I have to define the code here. Means main.c. Let's delete all these things, whatever it is here. Now I have to write down the code. You can write down the code in parallel with me. Like first, what we can do first. Actually, let me clarify that we are going to write this code in C platform. So the first option is definitely what has include stdio.h. We used to write down in C. That is the standard definition of input and output. For this, I will include the project file. That is the project file. I will write like this as include. You can write down in parallel to me. This is DSP. What I have using 28x project.h. So this is the first header file that we are going to define inside our program. If I am doing any mathematical operation, as we are going to compare, there will be some mathematical operation. For that mathematical operation, I need to define as include math.h, which we used to define in C or C++ programming. This will be same as include math.h. So math.h there will be inverted comma. Math.h will be inside the inverted comma, right? Yeah, it is. There you go. Sorry. Right. Okay. Now coming to the next line. There are some functions that if there are some global functions, you need to first. There are three times if you need to use any extra function. First, you need to declare that function, right? That is the function declaration. Second one will be function call, that will be inside the void main program, and again the function definition, that you need to define the function definition outside of the main program, right? Right? Is it clear? If it is clear, means any participant can unmute himself or herself and tell me if it is clear up to this point. If you are facing any problem while writing the code, you can ask. If it is okay, confirm it, then we will proceed. Right. Okay, no one has any doubt, I think. So we'll proceed. So first, I have to declare the function. How to declare the function? It is a void function. So I have to write down void. Let's define the function name here. It is a void function. So inside the bracket, it will I will write down void also. Now let's write down the function name. Let's means a single PWM we will generate for for the boost converter. So let me write down single boost, right? Single boost void, right? I have to finish this command by a semicolon, right? Now going to enter. Now I will define some constant value. Let me go to the PPT. So we are generating Actually, this is a question for you. That is, generate two EPWM pulses with duty ratio 0.3 and 0.5, both at 10 kilohertz at GPIO pin 2 and 3 respectively. As I have discussed already, that each EPWM unit has the capacity to generate two pulses at a time. So these are the two pulses with same frequency. But with same frequency, as the question asks us to generate at the same frequency, so we can use a single EPWM block to generate this one, right? So GPIO pin 2 and pin 3. GPIO pin 2 and pin 3 corresponds to which EPWM register units? It is defined here in this slide, right? GPIO 2. GPIO 2 is corresponding to EPWM 2A and GPIO 3 is corresponding to EPWM 2B. So I need to define the EPWM 2 unit. So I will work with now only EPWM 2 unit, right? That is EPWM 2A and 2B. So now coming to the last slide or whatever. So first we need to find out the value of TBPRD. So I have considered this in this case that the carrier signal is in off mode. That is, counter mode should have to be defined as 0. Now coming to the value of TBPRD. For off mode, the formula will not contain here half, as that was for up and down mode. So if I will define the formula, it will be for TBPRD plus 1. That is, as you have seen here, you have defined it. TBPRD1, here it is, right? And the TBPRD plus 1, right? Here it is TBPRD plus 1. So that I have to equate this one now. So coming to this. This is the value of TBPRD. So TBPRD plus 1, I have to generate 10 kilohertz. So you can derive like this: TBPRD plus 1 is write down this formula and find the value of TBPRD. If anyone has come up with the value of TBPRD, now you can reply your answer with the chat box, or else you can unmute yourself and tell the answer. Right? There is a slide. Sorry. I can see in the chat box. Okay. No one has provided the answer. Can I have any answer from the participant side? You have to generate 10 kilohertz signal in up mode. You have to find out the value of TBPRD. So the value of TBPRD will come like this: TBPRD plus 1 is 2500, because 150 megahertz is fixed. That is our system clock frequency. 10 kilohertz is the required output PWM frequency, and I have defined HSC CLK H2, that is the Y default value, and CLK as 1. That's where it is defined as earlier. Here, right? I have defined 2 here, so it will be divided by 2, and 1, it will be divided by 1. So coming to the last slide, right? Here it is. So putting 2 here and 1 here, it will be 7500. So the value of TBPRD will be 7499 now. For also it will be same for the down mode, that is CTR mode 1. But while coming to up down mode, that is counter mode S2, the formula will be same as derived earlier, that is 2 into TBPRD is 7500. So the value of TBPRD will be 3750. Now coming to the program, I have to define here few global variables. Like, what are the global variables? Whatever the value that I'm going to store inside CMPA and CMPB. That is, what is CMPA and CMPB? CMPA and CMPB are the two constants here, right? Two constants that we are going to compare with the carrier signal. So the constant A and constant B value must be some percentage of TBPRD, or must be the value less than the value of TBPRD. So as we have defined TBPRD at 7499, that is the total number of step size is 75. So let me define first constant, that is a float, right? This is the standard to write float constant at A, right? constant one. Constant one equal to I'm multiplying because here it is written that you have to generate pulses with duty cycle 0.3 and 0.5, right? So I will multiply by a factor 0.3, that is 7500 into 0.3 first. Now semicolon, and again I'm defining another variable, that is load variable constant 2 equal to 7500 multiplied by 0.5, as I require 2 pulses with 0.3 and 0.5 duty cycle. Now coming to this, now the next will be what? After this, I have to start the main program, right? So yeah, any question? Someone is unmuted the mic. I have to define the the main program here, and within the curly bracket I have to write the definition, right? Now I will start writing the main program. Yeah, hello Viren, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we will start writing the program. So the first step will be initialize the system control. So we need to initialize all the system control. That is, the command for that is init
Yes,
system
that is
control. CTRL, C will be capital first.
This function initialization the system control register to a known state, because many system control register, so we need to initialize the function initializing the system control to a known state. Why we initialize this register to known state? Because we mentioned in the slides, first of all we disable the watchdog. So by written this code we can disable the watchdog and phase lock loop control register for proper synchronizing out frequency. Then the pre-scale for the high and low frequency peripheral clock, and enable the clock to the peripherals. So with return this instruction, we cover up all these things. Next, sir. So may I, sir, write the next instruction?
Okay, was muted. Okay. So so the next line is so next line will be I have to initialize the GPIO, that is INIT init EPWM. We can write in this way. Sorry, the P will be capital. Remember this. Oh, it is colorful. So EPWM2. As I am going to use EPWM2, GPIO, G capital PIO small. I have to end by semicolon.
Hello. In slice the GPIO, we can enable which pin we want to trigger. So this initialization GPIO point to function as EPWM2, we enable the GPIO pin as we mentioned the in PPT Mux1. Here we can got that output from initialize pin as 2. Further, sir. Hello, sir.
So the next line will be, yeah, I have to initialize PI control register, that is INIT init. Yeah, sorry. INIT init PI control register, PIE. Select PI control. Right, yeah, right.
Yeah. With written this code, this function initializes the peripheral interrupt expansion control register to known state. Why we write this? Because written by this instruction, we disable interrupts at the CPU level and disable maskable interrupts and disable the peripheral interrupt expansion and clear all the peripheral interrupt enable registers and peripheral interrupt expansion enable flag registers. Then go to the initial pi vector table, sir. Okay, and with the help of pi vector table, the functions initialize the pi vector table to known state. This function must be executed after the boot time. By the return of this instruction, all the interruption we are at the peripheral, and with the help of the interrupt service routing, we executed all the interrupt in the sequence way as we required.
Yeah, I will go to the next one. That is I have to IER equal to 0 at 0 0 0 0. That is, I'm resetting this value. Similarly, IFR.
Interrupt enable register to initialize the 0 state, and interrupt flag register initialize the 0.
Yeah. Then after I proceed.
Yeah.
So now coming to initial 5 vector table.
Yeah.
In it,
Yeah. With the help of this 5 vector table, interrupt service routing can take all the peripherals interrupts in a sequence way by the help of interrupt service routing. Sir.
EINT. Sorry, that is not correct. INT. ERTM.
Enable global interrupts or INTM pins. So we are enable all the global interrupts and enable global real-time interrupts at the time of debugging. And come to the next point, sir.
Now I have to call the
Main
function here that I have already declared above. So this is the
single
function called the same line will be copy pasted. So I am calling this function. Now I will define this function outside of the main block, right? So this is the main block. Here it is completed. Now I will define. For defining this function, I have to first write down the name of the function over this one. So I will start writing within the curly bracket, right? The same as C1, right? So first what I need to do is I need to set up the EPWM2 register. So if, as we need the output as EPWM2 register, we will define it like EPWM2 register. First, I have to define the TBPRD, and here we are going to take the advantage of structural approach to C. I am using the structural approach to C while defining this program for DSP, right? So here EPWM2 register, as you can see on my screen, EPWM2 register I have written. After this, whenever I will hit the dot button, it will show me all the registers present inside the EPWM2 unit. So I need to define here. I need to go for what TBPRD first, right? So all the registers, you need not to remember the name of the register. You just need to remember EPWM2 register. That one with E as capital and R as capital, and no space will be there in between. So I have to go to TBPRD register. This is showing here that unit 16 means 16-bit register it is. I have to hit the enter button, TBPRD. So now I will define the TBPRD value. Okay, equal. I have to define TBPRD 7499, right? Am I correct? Now, so going to the next line. The next line will be what? I have to define the means I have to reset the counter first, so that the counter will start counting from 0 to the value of TBPRD. So ECWM to register. I have to hit the start button. After this, it will show all the options. So I have to go to EBCTR, that is time-based counter register. I have to, this is a 16-bit register shown here, EBCTR unit 16. Hit enter, and I have to initialize this at 0 0 0. Now, coming to the next line. What I have to do now? I have to define the counter mode, right? Where was the counter mode? Counter mode was this is the counter mode. So I have to go to the EPWM2 register. Inside that, I have to go to the TBCTL register, right? TBCTL register it is. So I have to go EPWM2 register dot what? Now I have to go to TBCTL, that is time-based control register. TBCTL here, TBCTL it is, right? Now again, after TBCTL, again I have to go, I have to access to it sub register or bit. So I have to again hit the dot button. So TBCTL is a 16-bit register. So if you are going to define all the 16 bits at a time, you need to select this all unit 16 or if you are going to define a particular bit, you need to come to this bit and hit enter key. Again, hit the dot button so that all the bits that are within the TBCTL register will be shown to you. This is the advantages of structural approach to C. Here we will go with the first counter mode. So this is the counter mode. Again, you have to hit enter. Counter mode you have to define. First, you have to define the counter mode. What we have taken, we have to go in the off mode. So for off mode, what it was? For off mode, it was 0 0. Means I have to define 0 here, right? For down mode, I have to 1, and for up down mode, I have to define 2 for 0. Now, coming to the next line. After defining the control mode, I have to define two important parameters, that is HSP CLK and CLK diff. So what we have taken here, HSP CLK diff as 2 and CLK diff as 1, right? And for HSP CLK diff 2, what I have to write down, that we can see in this register, CLK 2 means I have to write 1 here. That you can use the binary value of 001 as 1. So now write it down. EPWM2 register dot, I have to choose TBCTL, right? Here you can find out TBCTL here, then dot, then I have to go to the bit value, then again dot, then again I have to go to here what? TBCTL, I have to go to CLK, right? CLK or HSP CLK, whatever. First we need to define HSP CLK. Anyone you can define, no issue. HSP CLK, what will be the value of HSP CLK? HSP CLK, we have taken as, we need to divide it by 2, so I need to define, right? 1. Next, I need to define CLK. But I need to define CLK EPWM2 dot. I have to go to TBCTL. I can write it down. TBCTL dot all bits. I have to go second dot. Again, I have to go to CLK. Write it right here. So equal to, I have to define what? CLK. I need the default value that I want to divide it by 1. So the value will be 0 0 0. That in decimal it will correspond to 0 value, right? 0. Coming to the next line. Coming to the next line. Now the important things are the frequency are all set. Now we need to define the action qualifier unit. So what are the actions to be taken upon comparison? First we need to define modulating signal or that constant value within the CMP-A register. So the syntax to write the CMP-A register is like this: PWM2 register dot. I will go to CMP-A, right? So here it is CMP-A. Compare high resolution PWM group. CMP-A again dot. So here it is all or half. So I have to go for half because I need to define a single. Part of that, right? Half. Again I have to dot. CMP-A or CMP-A. I will opt for CMP-A simple. That's equal to. I need to define that constant value. So if I need EPWM2A, means the output at 2A at 0.3. So I need here to define constant 1 value. So here you can define constant. So the constant 1, right? CMP-A equal to semicolon. Here. Now actions to be taken. So while in off mode, there will be 2 points, like 1 0 point and 1 off mode will be in that will be compared with A value, right? So now EPWM2 dot, I have to go for what? Action qualifier unit. So action qualifier is here, you can find it out. AQCTL-A, again dot. Again I have to go for bit option. Again here dot. Again I have to here whether you want to all the register is present inside this. What we have here in this here is the slide. Okay, this is a particular set. So ZRO, PRD, CAU, CAD, CB, CAD, we need to define that. So in this case, what is going to be useful? whenever I am defining a bit, it will be A will be only useful, and though it is in CTR mode 0 means only in off mode. So only upper will only the upper register will be useful. So bit again I have to Now I need to define first ZRO then CAU. So you can reverse the manner, no issue. You can define CAU first and ZRO later. It will provide the same result. So 0. What will be the action taken at point 0? Whenever the carrier signal will be same as 0, it will be a Q set, right? Or you can define it 2 or 1, whatever it will be done. Now coming to ECWM to register dot to go to XCTL A again dot, then go to B option again dot, again I have to go to CAU option here, right? So CAU, I have to define this CAU at point A. While in off mode, I have to define either this statement at this point it will be clear, right? Action qualified clear, or you can simply write down one here. It does them clear, right? Now this is the complete of what your EPWM 2A unit. Now I have to define 2B because I need 2 EPWM at the same time. So first I need to define the EPWM what 2B. So the compare B register, that is ECWM2 register dot XCTL. I have to go for the B unit now. So XCTL B I will go for no. Sorry, first I have to compare, right? So I will go for compare register. Compare B register. Compare B register. I have to define as the second value, that is 0.5 with 0.5 duty ratio, that is constant 2. CONST 2, right? So CONST 2, right? Now I have to define what are the actions to be taken for the B unit of EPWM 2. So I have to define here EPWM 2 register dot. I have to go now for action qualifier B unit, XCTL B. Hit dot button. Again go to beat option. Go to dot button. Again I have to, it will be set here. I have to write it down active set here. Semicolon. And the second command will be for XCTL B dot CBU. Instead of CAU, it will be CBU, right? So EPWM2 register dot AQ XCTL B. You can go here. Dot. You can go for the build option. In dot button. It will go for CBU option, right? I have to define CBU now. CBU will take qualifier clear. Right. This is the end of generating the second unit, that is B unit of the EPWM 2. Now there is no more steps. So here the program is being completed here. So now I can debug. I will debug this code and I will show you the output a real-time pin. So EPWM 2 register defines to which pin. I have to go for some here, right? So how to find out if EPWM 2 register corresponding to the pin? Here in this slide, we will go to slide number 10 or 11. Yeah, here it is defined. So EPWM 2A is corresponding to GPIO 2 pin. So physically, I have to connect the to my DSO probe to EPWM 2A, that is GPIO 2 pin. So I have to search for GPIO 2 pin. So here you can speak it is clear a bit. 2 pin, right? Here 2 pin, here it is clearly you can see that is 48, 8, 4, 6, 2 pin is here, right? This 0 to pin is clearly visible to you. Here I have to connect my probe, that is positive of the probe. Then I have to see this PWM signal with respect to ground. So I have to connect the negative of my probe to here. G and D is present here. Here also 3 pins are there. Here also 3 pins are there. Anywhere I can connect to the ground one. So I will now see the pulse between and ground, right? Now, have you connected 2 and ground? Yeah. You have connected, you have turned on the DSP, right? So I will first debug the code. I will debug the code and it will be checked for any error or whatever warning is there. I hope there won't be any error. Run in background. Okay, so now I can run it here. And code pulse is here. Pulse is here. Okay. Okay. Here is a warning symbol. You can see here. I have not defined the function. This is the function actually. So I have to define like this in GPM2. Right. Right. Now I think it should run. Now I have to stop it again. I have to go for debug option. Yeah, select the I want the modifications inside it. Now you can see now you can see there is no warning, right? And here it is the option to resume. Here I can click and will resume it so that the pulses will come at the DSP pin. Pin 2, have you connected it? Is it coming? Okay. Okay, so is there any problem? Okay. Upward. One defined here. 1 3 is not coming. So here also we can see there is another program in PWM. The same constant one here it is 0.5 and 0.6, and I can run this one also to show you the output. Yeah, add from so I can show you. Yeah, place it near. Camera is visible to the participants now. So just setting to a proper voltage per division or time per division setting. So then some more pulse. 8 to 5 pulse should be in the screen. Camera is affecting. Check the camera. Is visible now? Right. Right now I think the pulse is visible to you. Now I think it is clearly visible, right? The screen is constant, but it is buffering at a slower speed. That's why it is thing like it. It's going on, right? Now connect at a different pin. That is you have connected to 2. Now you can connect to pin 3. Now set the camera. Yeah. Now you can see. Now you can see it is good. Point now. We will provide this PWM signal to the boost converter. 1 minute. Okay. So here, so here you can see in the screen now that is As you can see, this is the boost converter. Yeah, now is it visible? This is the boost converter. This is the input of the boost converter, where we have taken the supply from. Turn on the supply. Turn on this. At 0. Right, can you see the supply? Move the camera towards this side. This is the supply. Now it is visible, I think. Yeah, this is the power supply that is going to provide the power to the input of the boost converter. This is the input of the boost converter. This is the switch, that is the MOSFET, and here is additional gate driver circuit which is going to drive the MOSFET switch. So we have taken the output from pin number 2 and ground, and we have provided it to the gate driver, and the output of this gate driver is internally connected to the switch, that is the G to S terminal. Now this is the diode of the boost circuit, and this is the inductor that is connected, and this is the load terminal. So we have to connect a capacitor across the load terminal, and this is the load terminal. That is the load terminal. Now we will another important thing is we need to supply some biasing voltage to this gate driver circuit. So here is another power supply that is providing the biasing supply of 15 volt. You can see here. You can go closer. 15 volt is shown here. So this 15 volt is supplied. This 15 volt is supplied to the F40. That is optically isolated gate driver F40 3184 we have used here. So it needs a 15 volt biasing supply. Now we will see the output with the gate first. So connect one probe to the output. Connect another probe pulse that is provided to the switch. Connect one more now. Where is another probe? Yeah, this is the output one. Yeah, provide another one to the pulse to see the pulse. Use that probe and connect it here to the resistor one. No issue. Connect to the resistor here. Yeah, you can connect. Put us to that. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Okay. No issue. Then with that, yeah. No, this is 15 volt. Give me the probe. That's not. Right. You can switch to this. One at a time. Okay. So I can now see the output here. I need to see the menu. Suppose channel 1. I have to select channel 1. I have to set the level. Right. Now you can see this is the pulse that is with 0 to 15 volt with 50% duty ratio. It's applied to the switch, and the output is put in probe 2 to measurement. Right, you can see the negative volt. I can change this to mean value. Channel 2 mean value, right? Channel 2 mean value. Go to back. So the output main value is now 3.84. You have given the input of 2 volt. It should be 4 volt at the output, right? Can you move it this angle so that both input supply is on. So yeah, now you can show that is 2 volt. The power supply is delivering, and the output is almost 2 volt, right? Now the output should be now just twice. So the input now is stop at 4 volt. Okay, so output is 4. So the input is 4 volt. So the output should be main value is 7.67 or something. It is like some 8 volt. Now whenever we are going on increasing the input supply of the boost converter, the output will go on increasing. You can slowly increase the input supply, the input voltage, so that slowly the output voltage will start moving, not that much slowly, to the fine one. Now the input voltage is at 4.6 and it is going on increasing, increase more. Now it is 5 volt, it is going on increasing. You can see it. Now whenever I am going to go up to 10 volt, we will have, now I have to reduce the volt per division so that I can have the volt per division. Now it is at 5 volt per division. So the input is 10 volt now, and the output is nearly at 20 volt, 10.1 volt. It is 20 point some volt. Now keep on increasing. So we can go up to 15 volt with this first, right? Yeah. So go to 15 volt. We will have 30 volt at the output terminal. Some inductor down, no issue. Yeah. Now zoom in that. Now you can see it is supplying with 15 volt, and the current it is supplying 0.15 ampere, and at the output, you can see it is some 31.2 volt, right? And you can see here the channel 1 peak to peak is 20 volt, pulse width is 50. Let me define the frequency and the pulse width here, right? So channel 1 frequency. Now you can see the DSO frequency, exactly 10 kilohertz it is coming. Frequency, we have generated 10 kilohertz that we have now never seen across the gate to source, that is 10 kilohertz. Peak to peak value is this much. So this is the 50 microseconds. Means 10 kilohertz will correspond to what, 100 microsecond of time period, and again 50 microsecond time period shows the value of what, that is 50% duty ratio we have taken. Now lower down the voltage, then we will change our setting. Lower down the voltage, turn up the source. We will supply the 0.3 duty ratio to the boost converter. So now changing port 2, now changing from port 2 to port 3, so that the duty ratio will be 0.3. Now you can see in the DSO it is 0.3. So it is only turning on for a time period of 30%, and now turn on the supply voltage, and I'm going on increasing. So the output is also goes on increasing. You can see in the DSO. Okay. So 5 volt. Okay, keep on increasing. 5 volt is it is corresponding to some 7 volt. You can apply the formula, that is V naught equal to V in upon 1 minus D, right? V in upon 1 minus D. So if I have taken the D value as 0.3, that is duty ratio as 0.3, so 1 minus D will be 0.7. So 5 upon 0.7 will give some value of 7 volt or something, right? Now keep on increasing. Whenever the input voltage is 10 volt, the output is some nearly 15 volt. It is boosting, right? Again, one is increasing. Now it is some 16 volt, or if this constant is 15 volt, make it 15 volt, right? 15 volt, 0.31 ampere is supplying, right? 0.31 ampere is supplying, and the output right now is 22 volt, right? You can divide 15 upon 0.7 will be what? You can see here 22 volt is written in the screen, right? 22 volt here, right? And the pulse width is 30 microseconds. That's it. That is out of 100 microseconds. That is the time period. You can see here channel 1 time period. I can show you 20 period. You can show the time period is 100 microseconds, and I can show the positive pulse width as positive voltage. So 30 microseconds. So out of 100 microseconds, the switch is only turned on for a period of 30 microseconds, right? And you can see the output voltages, the input voltage upon 1 minus 0.3, that is 15 upon 0.7 is mostly close to 22 volt or 22 point something, right? Now here we formally conclude this hands-on session. If you have any queries. Sorry. Sir, if you have any doubt, you can ask this start now. Unmute yourself and ask the question. Q&A session starts here.
Hello, anyone have a doubt? If you hesitate here,
Yeah, continue.
if you hesitate here to ask the questions, then you can email us as a mention on the PPT.
Not PPT and the
As
earlier
introduction.
slide.
Yeah, our introduction. In our introduction.
As we are providing the chat box also.
Yeah.
If you have any doubt, instead of writing in the chat box, you can directly ask us by unmuting yourself. That will be far better to understand your question. We didn't type your email ID also.
Yeah.
After the PDF how to attach it? I will. Yeah. I will upload the PDF file here in the chat. Stand up anyone.
Song, there is a disturbance in voice.
Yeah. Yes.
I think one of
It's not from my side. So inside the hall.
now it's okay.
Okay.
Now it's okay.
Okay.
Now it's okay.
Now it is. So I will provide the PDF file in the chat section. Right now I'm not getting any option. Let me search for it. Yeah, files here. Yeah, I can share file here. Yeah, right. Upload from my computer. I got this one. So I'm sharing the file right now. Just wait. Application notes, right? Yeah, I have uploaded it. It is being uploading now. We'll go to file option. That is present just sideway of the chatting option in the main.
So have you uploaded the file? Song?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is being uploaded here.
It's being, so it will be.
It will take some time.
Available in their
yes, sir. It will be there. It will be.
So
it
they
will
can
be
download
available to all the participants. They can download it at a later stage also. There is no issue.
Yes.
Yes.
So is there? Okay.
So,
Anything
sir,
else?
there is a question in the chat box.
Right. You can tell on their behalf. Yeah, sir.
Yeah.
Continue.
Chandan said that mic is on. Mic is on, I guess.
Implement a variable duty cycle on a time frame as per the load requirement. Okay, perfect. Okay, I have seen this one. For this, you have to go for closed loop control, and for closed loop control, you have to additional first set up the analog to digital converter, that is ADC part you have to set up, and again, and after that, that we are comparing CMP and CMP value, right? Here, the CMP and CMP value are constant that I have written here. Yeah, right, constant. So I can define a variable like x, y, or z that I don't want to define here like globally. Okay, let me share my screen first. I have not shared my screen right now. Here you can see now it is visible. So here, as I have defined the constant one as 7500 into 0.3, I don't need to define this constant. I can just declare a variable that is float x or float variable here, and that variable will contain the output of your controller, that is PI or PI controller. So accordingly, your PI controller will function. It will compare with the same carrier signal, so that the pulse width will be Gaussian varying whenever the output of your PI controller will vary. Right? Now, is there any question? It will be better to unmute if anyone has a question or gives any feedback, right? I think the application note file now it has been shared on the chat box. Now you can see it. Yes, thank you, Simon. Okay.
So
Okay, sir. I think there is no more question from the participant. So we can continue.
I think it's over from your side. So thank you, Swami and Viren, for
Thank you.
conducting this
Thank you.
hands-on session in such a nice way. And I'm very happy and really appreciate your efforts for making this hands-on training session hopefully very useful for the participants. As you have methodically presented the slides, discussed the basics, included the programming part, included the implementation, and finally experimentation as well. As far as hands-on training sessions are concerned, and these sessions are equally important as the lecture sessions are, and especially in polytronic, where we study the theoretical concept, we understand the basic concepts, but we don't have the feeling that we have understood it completely until unless we have performed experiments and see and analyze the experimental results. So in that sense, I hope that this hands-on training session will be very useful for the participants, and hopefully the participants have enjoyed as well. Thank you,
Sir,
Viren. Thank you,
sir,
Sam.
I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all my professors, Professor Mohanty, Professor Singh sir, and Professor Lal sir, who have provided us this platform to share our learnings that we have learned this in this lab only. So, as well as I would like to thank all my lab mates for their timely support to develop this hands-on course in a timely manner. Thank you, everyone.
So thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you, Viren.
Thank
And
you, sir.
thank
Thank
you
you.
all the participants.